This episode of Q Point Podcast is pre-recorded, produced and sponsored by Corenna and Quirk, broker at Next Home Experience.
Different views.
I know your story.
From different Q's.
Incredible job.
He's David Quirk.
You brought it up.
And she's Corenna Quirk.
Imagine.
This is
Q Point.
Thank you for joining us for part 2 with President and CEO of the Maine State Chamber of Commerce, Patrick Woodcock. Can you talk about LD 191?
The pass-through entity tax. Yeah, this has been an issue. It was our top issue for us last year. It was held over. We didn't get it over the finish line. This is what 38 other states have done. It's been blessed by the Internal Revenue Service that with a lot of business organizations, a workaround that states have done for the state and local tax limitation. So remember the SALT tax cap. I think we're maybe familiar at the individual level, but it also exists at the business level. And what has been enabled is that you can claim those costs as a deduction. If you make a state law change, claim it as a deduction and claim it at the entity level. You file your tax returns, be able to claim all the deductions at the federal level that lowers your federal tax liability. We're talking tens of millions of dollars. We think it's about $400 million that Maine businesses could save if we adopted this pass-through entity tax. And all we need to do is put up the rules for Maine Revenue Service that would enable that deduction to be claimed at the entity level and thereby reducing your federal tax liability. We have a lot of bipartisan support for it. We're hopeful that actually the governor will get behind this in this final session. The ironic element is it actually does raise revenue for the state. So it's all about putting the effort in to put up the rules to be able to set up these deductions at your parent company level, claim all the deductions, and implement this through Maine Revenue Service. I'm hopeful that we can get this done. It's what 38 other states have done to try to allow a workaround from the SALT limitations and allow what other businesses in other states are doing, brings more revenue into the state. It's a pretty clear win for Maine.
What investment areas make the most sense for bonding right now?
You need to look through the economic prism. We talked about our housing situation. There is a segment for affordable housing that really will not be built without state support. And also, transportation is the lifeblood of our economy. The costs of repairing bridges, all road projects have really skyrocketed. I would expect that there will be roughly $200 million discussed for an overall bond package, including transportation. We all know the number of bridges that we have as a state per capita, we're way off the charts. They're all coming due right now, and the costs of these construction projects really have ballooned. There's only a few ways to do that, looking at gas tax revenue, general fund revenue, bonding. And I will give the legislature some credit. They have created additional funding streams for transportation projects. But ultimately, we will need to have a transportation bond as part of this overall package that would go to voters in the fall.
I agree when it comes to bridges. Corinne and I, we have a cottage down there in Deer Isle, and we all know about that bridge down there. It seems like every year they do a study on it, and every year it doesn't change. So hopefully there'll be some money to actually redo that bridge.
I love that bridge.
It's a beautiful bridge, but I think it's going on
89 years?
80, yeah. And I think I just read that they do think it could go another 25, which is a good run. But we do need to look at safety. There are some great projects that are going on. One of the biggest projects in Maine's transportation history is going to be the bypass up in the county around Presque Isle, which I think really can unlock a downtown. Bypasses, they're safer too. And also, I think we need to look at overall, how can we maintain some rail service to Portland, the Downeaster, and really attract more and more people to start thinking about connecting to the Boston economy as well. We need Portland to thrive. We need all our cities to thrive. But I do sort of joke that New Hampshire and Rhode Island, they build their economy based on their proximity to Boston. always trying to gobble up small satellite offices, people that work in Boston, live in those states. And we kind of think about Boston as just kind of where the Sea Dogs go when they're promoted. We really can connect more into the global economy and connect it into Boston.
Speaking about connecting us to outside states, I see that United, I believe, is running a flight during the summer from Portland to California.
Now, 2 flights, United, direct flights to San Francisco, LAX. This is the thing to continue to make it viable for people to visit the state, but also live and work here. If you can quickly get meetings, will people have additional time that they spend from San Francisco and Los Angeles? We have to continue to build these connections. And the businesses that are doing well in Maine, they are connected to the national economy. We really need to grow those connections. The U.S. economy, we've had our challenges over the last few years. We are bar none the strongest economy on the planet. But the businesses that are more insulated, that are doing services to just the Maine economy, they're challenged. We got to help them grow, make those connections globally. And these transportation networks are going to be key to that.
Yeah, I think Bangor has one, Bangor to Denver, during the summer.
Yeah, nonstop.
Yeah. So tell us a little more about the Maine State Chamber of Commerce.
We are the largest statewide business organization. Our key purpose is advancing a pro-growth agenda with the Maine legislature and the administration. So we are focused exclusively on watching what the legislature is doing, testifying constantly. We have a team of 3 lobbyists that are in the State House as we speak, ensuring that the business voice is integrated into public policy. We're a member-based organization. We have about 5,000 members across the state, from regional chamber members, and we have a board of about 60 people of the business community to really set a course for the state's economy. One project that we're working right now on is an economic plan. We certainly want the next governor to have a plan that's had a sharp pencil as part of it. We'll be putting out pillars on a regulatory environment, our competitiveness, what are the key sectors we should be focused on. We'll be releasing that right in May as the primary of the governor's race comes into focus. And ultimately, we want this gubernatorial race to be about the economy. There's a lot of social issues that are driving people. I respect that. I think we really need to push that whoever is in the Blaine House next, that they have an economic vision and ultimately that the public's behind it. I don't want to be coming in this time next year and what should I be doing about the economy? We need that plan now. And we're going to be putting ours forward. We certainly are going to be encouraging gubernatorial candidates to adopt our platform. Ultimately, if they have a different idea, we want to hear about it. We don't want surprises after the fact when these people are elected.
And if somebody wants to get involved with the chamber, what's the best way for them to get involved?
Yeah, it's mainechamber.org. We'd love to have new members. We have all the largest employers of the state are part of the Maine Chamber, the household names that you know. But we're a state of small businesses, and we really need to integrate these small businesses, a new generation of business leaders as well. So we are mainechamber.org and would love to have more business leaders, especially from this area, really partner on what that vision should be for the state.
So if someone is a member of the Bangor Region Chamber of Commerce, are they automatically a member of yours, or is it separate?
Yeah, we do provide a honorary membership. We disseminate the information. We do encourage people to be members of both because ultimately we do see them as 2 separate missions. The regional chambers are huge partners in creating community and local issues. And some of the chambers like Bangor get involved in some issues with the State House, but we're there constantly. We're the only chamber that is testifying day after day after day. And that is really critical. That's all our tax policy, all our labor laws. It really is forming what our state economic framework is and what businesses are operating in. So we do encourage businesses when they're ready. Our membership's about $500 a year, and that doesn't work for every business. But as they grow, we want them to be a part of the Maine Chamber.
You are listening to Q Point Podcast. I'm Corenna Quirk, co-hosting with my husband, David Quirk, and we are having a conversation with President and CEO of the Maine State Chamber of Commerce, Patrick Woodcock. So how can small businesses engage more effectively in policy decisions with the chamber?
Well, I would recommend we do have 3 policy committees. We have an energy and environment, we have a budget and tax, and a labor committee. Ultimately, that is what forms our opinions on all of the bills. And we have usually about 50, 60 businesses every Friday that give a comment on legislation that's going to be heard the next week. What should the chamber's position be? You would be amazed at the number of bills that are being reviewed by the legislature. It is an enormous number of bills. Some of them are very poorly thought out. Some need some revision, and a few are really improvements. And it really does take our business community to give us this input because they're on the front lines. They know how they will be affected. The legislature certainly doesn't. So we do try to create this policy forum. We do a weekly legislative call every Monday at 8:30. This is the Outlook. And by joining the chamber, we do disseminate a weekly legislative update of what are the key bills every week in your inbox.
What's the outlook on the Bangor economy?
I do think Bangor does have some strengths. I think I'd start with its airport, proximity to the university. Obviously, we all know the recreational activities. I am concerned. I grew up in this area. There aren't a lot of my classmates that are still here. I just had my 25th reunion. And I do think what has been challenged by the paper industry, obviously that was a big hole up and down the Penobscot River. I do think aviation is something that we can work on. Our airport really is an incredible asset, and we have had some clusters work here. There's been some effort with some integration with the university. I think more businesses with Husson and the university with some internships. I've been encouraged. I think the university has awoken that needs to be a part of education, that it is experiential learning. It's not just in the classroom. I would encourage if there's any employers to really rethink how to integrate some of the students at the university into their workforce. But I think we have some demographic challenges. I have to say, I know Bangor pretty well. And last summer I was walking around and for the first time, it didn't feel that familiar to me. Just didn't feel as safe as I once felt. And I think we just have to have, that's a hard conversation, how you move a community into, that takes everybody. But there's some real challenges. Demographics, I do think you need to start thinking about housing and really investing in a downtown. Once you lose that, it's really hard to recover it. Portland is also having some of those challenges, but there are strengths to build on in this Bangor economy.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of the young people are leaving Bangor, and obviously we're the oldest state, and for some reason we're just not holding the young people to stay here. Either they go to Portland or south of us.
I think that goes into affordability and opportunity. And I do think our healthcare system has been fragile, but we do have strong healthcare services in Bangor. For a while, there was this congregation of people moving from more rural communities to cities, and that has really languished. So at this point, there is more of a movement into these clusters and these small, just a few counties in Maine. But I do think it's going to take a bit of a vision of just that we have to save the downtown. It's a negative feedback loop. You lose another business and gets more pressure on those remaining ones. So I do think that that's key. And finally, I'd say we're very exposed to Canadian commerce here too. We're not that far from the Bangor Mall and what it was to get retail here. The Bangor Airport, I was struck by this stat that it's about 40% of all air travel from Bangor is actually Canadians. Recognizing that that is a big part of our regional economy, I think that's been strained from some of the bilateral relations as well.
So I'm sure you're going to meet with all the candidates that are running for governor and talk to them about your economy plan.
We're absolutely going to be sharing our vision for the state's economy. We want to hear their vision. We want to test that vision. I think one aspect that a lot of Mainers may be unaware of is, regardless of your opinion on Governor Mills, she really has been a moderating force in Augusta. There's been a Democratic legislature going back 6-7 years now, and there have been a lot of bills that she's vetoed or bills that she has pushed and indicated that she would veto the bill that have not made it into Maine law. And I think the real question is, will the Maine legislature continue to be Democratic and not have that sort of moderating force in the Blaine House. And that's concerning for us. I could see a scenario where in 2027, there are some bills that are really existential challenges for the Maine business community that have the possibility of becoming law. There aren't a lot of individuals in the legislature that I put in this camp, but there are some that really don't believe in the current economic model at all. Democratic socialists, some bills from labor laws to a tax agenda that would really, in our opinion, push us very far backwards in our economic climate, which is already challenged right now. So I think that's one aspect that we'll be watching. And then the other component is we're going to have a very competitive U.S. Senate race. For us, making sure that both the U.S. Senate race and the gubernatorial race is focused on the economy. And if anything, that the governor's race doesn't get a little bit of a shadow cast on it from all the visibility on the Senate race. It's a completely open gubernatorial race. I think I could make a case for 8 candidates that could win, but that this race doesn't get overshadowed by what's happening in the U.S. Senate race, which will have hundreds of millions of dollars spent on it.
Do you endorse candidates?
So interestingly, the Maine State Chamber of Commerce just voted our board that we will be making endorsements at the legislative level. That was a review that we did of how other state chambers operate in a handful of races where it's a clear pro-business candidate and one that we think is going to be material for the state's economy. We'll be interviewing these candidates, putting a questionnaire together, and ultimately, we do want to support Democrats and Republicans that really want to be partners with the business community. There's been about 5 or 6 bills that passed in the last 3-4 years that really pushed us backwards. The paid family medical leave, I would put at the top of that list. The solar program. We also had a PFAS law that was really poorly thought through. And you couple those all together, and having a few extra votes when it mattered would have been meaningful. And actually, I think it would have made the policies better because they would have had to have compromised with more people rather than just railroaded these bills through. So ultimately, we're hoping to have more of a pro-business legislature, and it will be the first step for the chamber to make those endorsements in the 2026 cycle.
Do they need to be incumbents, or can they be a new candidate?
Either one. We'll really be looking at, is it a competitive district? We'll have limited resources because when we make these endorsements, we'll also be putting resources to support these people. So it's the first step. We'll see how this cycle goes. There have been some races I look back and somebody won by just a few dozen votes, and maybe the Maine chamber and having a business do an advertisement of saying this person really has my back would have been the difference of bringing somebody in who really would have been a partner for the business community.
So when you're talking about bills, you must be talking about the new bill that came out to dim lights at night after 10 o'clock.
No, there was a bill. There was high ambition with that vision. Ultimately, the bill that passed, I think, limits the lighting on government buildings, but originally was proposed to dim all buildings, which did not receive the chamber's support.
Before we let you go, if listeners remember one thing from this conversation as Maine heads into 2026, what should it be?
We really do control our economy. We do have the levers at the legislature. What I am frustrated about sometimes is people think that these things are beyond our control. And ultimately, these are decisions that are being made in Augusta that we can push back on with a strong business voice and employers, the business community saying no and putting an agenda forward that is a pro-growth agenda. We can change this trajectory of this state. I am a firm believer that we can do that. And ultimately, there is no reason Maine can't replicate the success of a lot of states that we're seeing in the United States right now and start really unlocking the economic growth we're seeing in the United States right here in Maine.
President and CEO of the Maine State Chamber of Commerce, Patrick Woodcock. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Such a pleasure. Great to be back here in Bangor.
Thank you very much. You've been listening to Q Point.
Follow us at qpointpodcast.com or on your favorite streaming app.
This is where you can get the news from the people who make the news.
Make sure to join us next time
We hope you tune in.
Q Point Podcast invites guests and candidates from all parties to join the conversation. The views, information, opinions, and comments expressed during this program do not necessarily represent those of the host, Q Point Podcast, associates, affiliates, and CQRE LLC.
Thanks for being a part of the conversation. The most important voices aren't always the loudest ones. They're the voices of everyday people, raising families, running businesses, serving their towns. That's who we want to hear from. Share your ideas with us online, and let's make sure those voices are never left out. Find us on Facebook or on X or at qpointpodcast.com. We look forward to hearing from you. Catch every episode at qpointpodcast.com or wherever you stream. Tune in and tell your friends.